Trying to get off the ground right now. Dr. Haynes. Dr. Haynes.
Dr. Waddell.
So I'm wondering if this is the I'm wondering if you want to use one of these flash backgrounds like Heller or no.
We can.
It doesn't matter. You look like your situation is great. Oh my goodness, the baby.
I set up my situation to look like something back here.
Got it.
Say hi.
No, you look great. Do you remember me with the camera?
Oh, she wants the bottle. Look at that.
Rejected again. So one quick thing, Saturday is not going to work. It's raining. B, my wife is totally against the photo. So we'll be setting up the children. And she would ideally like to do it in the snow. We'll see. But I think photographing in the snow is tough.
Okay. Yeah.
Because your hands are cold.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay for me, but you guys, yeah. I'll get some really thin gloves or something. It's fine.
So anyway, we're continuing to figure it out.
Okay.
But Saturday is not going to work.
Okay. That sounds fine.
And were the photos okay? Because I wasn't sure.
Yes, I got some. You got some good ones. You got some really cute ones. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
They're great. Thank you.
And you're going to be able to use them.
Yes. Yes. When my parents came, I wanted to look like a plant in the background. When my parents came, they did some with them too, because they were like, we want to be in the photos too. So I was like, fine. So they took some with their phones. So yeah, now we've got yours and those. So thank you. Yes, I love them.
All right, great.
So I could use a cool Heller background. What do you think? Do you think that would like that?
Hold on. No, I think no, because this is a career conversation. We want to see you.
Okay.
Right. So I am not going to be in the conversation. I don't think. Bryan's just transitioning from a session that he just ended. So we're this is a program heavy time of year. Anyway, how are you? How are your students at
good tomorrow? Our last day is tomorrow. I'm so sad.
Who's leaving tomorrow?
Our last day semester is tomorrow. Yeah. So we played trivia yesterday and I ordered buzzers from Amazon and they loved it. And we had massive fights about me assigning points and bias and cheating. And they answered questions and they actually learned stuff. And I gave them oodles of candy. So it was fun. Yeah. So
that's good. Did you give them the candy that you had been hoarding or was this new candy?
It was new candy, but it was the kind of candy that I will eat when they don't eat all the candy.
Got it. Yep.
And Brad bought an obscene amount. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Yeah.
Did I mention that I love Brad?
Shut up. I'll say that to you before the kids get on. Shut up.
Yeah. And you know what? And what I particularly love about Brad, what I love now is that he was so cute in the photos.
He was cute. He's cute with her. They're very cute together. Yeah. They're very cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was okay. He's all right.
Yeah. He's a
question.
Yes.
Do you mind if I mention our working together on your book project, or would you prefer I don't?
No, I don't care.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't care. Are you asking me that because you are frustrated by my lack of engagement? Or
no, that's your choice. It's all you drive that ship. I want to mention it because one of my themes, quite shaming. One of my themes is like learning by doing or doing things that I kind of sort of know how to do and finding opportunities to do that. So that's one of them.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Okay, cool.
No, I think that's great. Oh no.
I'm going to start, like you said, like I'll talk for 2 minutes and then see what they're about and who's in the room. And then I have kind of like my trajectory, which is a bit longer than I thought it would be. And like some take homes that I've learned and then questions. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. And I can see somebody has already joined.
Oh,
Hi,
cool.
Kimberly.
Hi, apologies if I got here too early during the game planning bit.
No, that's okay. So Amy is a very old friend of mine. I mean, like, she's not that old, but our friendship is pretty old.
Revise. Yes.
But yeah, so anyway. But she's super excited to be here, and I'm really happy that she was able to join, because I think she has a really excellent sort of trajectory in terms of what I know our students are thinking about in terms of ways to leverage their SID and everything else they have in their lives and that they're bringing to the job market and other places. So I'm thrilled that she's with us. And Bryan will also be joining us shortly. So we tend to wait a couple minutes. So I am going to, I'll be here, but I'm going to go off video. And so Amy, we are recording this session just so that folks know. So Amy, if you want to engage, you're more than welcome to.
Well, can I actually go off video for a minute and burp this little primate and get her situated and then somebody yell when it's time?
No.
Well, then I'm bringing her to your work, your office.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so somebody just holler when it's time, Dr. Waddell. I will listen for you. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, yep. All right, we're going to start in 1 minute. Bryan is going to be with us. He just ended another session. Hi, Marwa. Hi, Emily. And I already said hi to Kimberly. Dr. Haynes is on and flexing her one of her muscles. It's called work-life balance, procreation, engagement with primates.
Primate wrangling, that's what it is.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So in this session, you will also have an opportunity to sort of ask questions, engage with Amy or Dr. Haynes, as well as just hearing her yabber on about all of the things that she's done.
Could get very boring.
Working in Africa, wrangling primates,
Different
PhD,
kinds.
teaching at Harvard, you know, all of these things. So
Fun stuff.
Dr. Haynes, do you remember Emily Hogger? Did you interact with her at all or cross over with her? Maybe she might have missed you by a year. But she's in North Virginia. Sorry, let me try that one more time. She's in West Virginia. And I don't know if she started there, but she there was a current student, Catherine Gooding, who is from West Virginia, and she went to a conference and she was surprised.
By what? Like that she ran into an SID person?
Yeah, that she ran into an SID person in West Virginia. So
we're everywhere.
Yes, indeed. So did you so in the chat, Marwa introduced herself. And here is my colleague. Bryan is now on and he is in the driver's seat.
Excuse the baby, sorry.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Bryan. Oh my God, you guys, she just drank a bottle of milk. I'm so sorry if she burps and sounds crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is everyday life, any moment. So it's the way it goes. So sorry for being late. I'm coming from another presentation. Very good. So just want to see where we stand. Okay. So how have things gone?
We just said hello and hung out for.
I haven't even started. You're starting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
you get started.
Very good. Thank you. So let's see. We have here. Great. So hello, everyone. My name is Bryan Kanney. I'm Assistant Director for Career Development here at the Heller School. Today we have Amy Haynes. And you have surely read her bio by now with all of the advertising that we've offered. So I think I'll just turn it over to Amy, maybe for a quick introduction, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Haynes. I was in the dual SID program and the Women and Gender Studies program at Brandeis for my master's, and I finished there in 2011. And then I did my PhD at Brandeis Anthropology Department and finished there in 2020, I believe, 2021. It's a blur with COVID. And so, yeah, I am thrilled to be here, and thank you to Bryan and Jasmine, Dr. Odell, for inviting me. And I figured I'm excited to hear about what other people are up to and to know what you'd like to talk about for the hour. And I can talk a little bit about my trajectory, sort of how the path I followed to get here, I guess, and how SID and Heller was a part of that. And my path, I think, seems kind of wandering. Like I've done a few different things that may seem a little bit unconnected, but I think for me, themes that ran through all of it were opportunities where I could learn, things where I could try to produce some kind of change, and kind of a concern for justice or fairness, which I think a lot of people at the Heller School, no matter what program they're in, that's something that's important to them. And I'll talk a little bit about skills that I picked up along the way, because I think I'm not somebody who's great at networking in kind of what we think of as networking, where you contact somebody, you ask them out for coffee, or you're at an event and you kind of, are good at a little bit of small talk and things like that. So I've done some of that. I'm not comfortable doing that. And so I think the way that I've sort of made connections has been, I've looked for ways that I could use skills that I had to help other people. And that was a way for me to feel comfortable asking them for things in return often. And I'm trying to transition out of that now that I am not a PhD student anymore. And Dr. Waddell has been great as a mentor, helping me kind of transition out of that, like the helping mode, or if I am helping, I'm helping as a PhD doctorate who's teaching somewhere, not as a student or a candidate anymore. So yeah, I guess that's my brief intro, and I'd love to hear who everybody is, where you're from, what program you're in now, and what you want to talk about today. Like, so I'm not, on the wrong track. And this is Izzy. Izzy is 6 months old. She's going to join us for part of this. She has her little mohawk going. And hopefully I will at some point shift her to her play mat, and then we can, I can just look right here, because I'm sure she'll be quiet and super
well
behaved.
welcome, Izzy. Welcome here.
Thanks, Bryan.
Well, great. So for any of the students who are here, do you mind if you're uncomfortable unmuting or putting yourself on camera, do feel free to put the information in the chat. If you want to introduce yourself, that would be great. And then we can sort of shift the focus of the session forward. So maybe Emily, Kimberly, Narwa.
So Marwa, I noticed that you put something in the chat saying that you are from Sudan and you are an ornithologist. I'm wondering if you
Cool.
wanted to maybe
Cool.
flesh that out a little bit more, or say it in your own words.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I jump in?
Yes.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Marwa. I'm from Sudan, and I'm ornithologist. Let me sit down first. Okay. I used to be a lecturer at university in wildlife, and I did my master in ornithology in Sudan. And after that, like, I did a lot of work with local community in area of climate change. And that's why I come here to Hiller to study sustainable development and conflict resolution, because in my area we have kind of conflict and this affects the environment. Okay, that's all. Thank
Thank
you
you
guys.
so much. That's exciting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for. Oh, Marwa, is there anything in particular you wanted to chat about today? Like during the hour?
Yes, I want to know the opportunities here in United States for my major, and I want to hear more about others' experience. Yeah. And if there are birds watching group in Hiller or in Brandeis, or hello.
Yeah, there are a lot of cool bird watching things around Boston. I'm not sure about Brandeis, but I can link up with you after. Maybe Bryan can help us exchange emails, and I can send you some bird watching stuff if you'd like.
Okay.
So do Emily or Kimberly, do you want to, excuse me, Kimberly, do you wish to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you for taking the time to speak with us, Dr. Haynes. So my background and interest in this is I don't have a direct academic connection to this. I'm in the COEX program, but I have a growing interest I've noticed in the intersection of human and wildlife related conflict. Actually went and talked to Dr. Waddell near the beginning of the semester about it. And she was like, boy, is there a talk coming up for you, you should sign up for, actually. And so I guess some things I'd be interested in learning about is just sort of that kind of winding path you talked about taking, going from, your master's to your PhD. And if there's time, I also checked your bio and noticed you mentioned like a lot of really interesting focuses and interests, including cuteness. And I don't know if you've brought like a demonstration of that for us today, and that's what this is, but I was just also kind of curious about that on a personal note, but thank you for speaking with us.
Yeah, of course. I can talk a little bit about the cuteness. I don't have, I can also connect with you after. I have a little piece I wrote about field work that can show you some cute photos I took that are part of the dissertation and the cuteness stuff. Yeah, a little bit about that, but yeah, we can definitely connect about that. That's exciting. And I'll try to work some of that in for sure. Ooh, okay. Awesome.
Oh. And then Emily, she put in the chat here. She's from Boston in the SID program. Her undergrad is in environmental studies. She's interested to learn about your connections between anthropology and wildlife and the work you are doing now. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much. Where should we start, Brian? Should I talk a little bit about sort of the path? Like what should we do that?
Yeah, we can start with a path. I definitely don't want to lose sight of the skill piece, and yeah,
Okay.
so we'll just go from there.
Okay, great. So the path, I think I'm going to start a little bit back because I think it looks early on looks pretty different. So my undergrad was a BA in psychology and women and gender studies, and that was at a small liberal arts school in North Carolina. And I like learning in small environments. That's part of why I liked kind of the SID program, small class sizes and stuff. And after that, I had worked in kids' mental health for a little while, and I realized that I had learned all I could learn in the US, college, working, and I wanted to be somewhere different and learn in a different way. And so I joined the Peace Corps and that's for anybody who's not familiar, it's an American volunteer program where adults go for 2 years to a country that has an agreement with the US. Normally it's a developing country. And there's programs in education and natural resource management, some in environmental management, public health, and you do community projects with the community. And so I did that for 2 years. And while I was there, spoke French and a local language, Sarma, and those will circle back into the skill parts. And I did community education programs with girls, built a well at a school, and did some translation and worked with a group of sex workers on an income diversification project in my local town. And I think a pivotal moment for me in Niger was I was talking to some of them, and I was excited about the idea of like a literacy component to our program. And we were doing microloans, and they were, doing small business stuff with the microloans. And I was really excited. I was like, okay, we could also do this literacy piece. We have a small library here. It would be really fun, and it would be really useful. And one of the women with a kid on her lap, like this, looked at me and she said, we can't eat books. And so that was a moment for me where I was like, okay, I'm from the US. I think that, well-being and betterment and a better life, is one way, but there are people in different places who have very different ideas and very different needs. And so I realized that I wanted to continue to be a part of development, and particularly around gender stuff, with women and girls in particular. But I wanted to figure out how to do development well. And so I applied to the Heller School for the SID program. Peace Corps has an agreement with the Heller School with a lot of master's level programs where some of your time in Peace Corps can count for courses and things. And so I was very excited about the SID program and the chance to take classes outside of Heller at Brandeis, which can be really helpful and really exciting. Everybody here seems like they have some concern with environmental stuff. There's environmental studies classes that you could audit, even undergrad classes, sometimes master's level ones. There's classes in anthropology. There's classes in, there's probably a class about nature, power, and that has to, in, you know, conservation, that some of you might be interested in the anthropology department, gender studies, all kinds of stuff. And you have, so this is a diversion. I also took classes when I was at Heller, at local schools. So I took one at BU. I think I took one at Harvard. That was when I was doing my PhD, but there's also the consortium. And I think some of those classes may cross over with Heller stuff. Bryan can correct me if I'm wrong. So that was Peace Corps. I came back, I applied to Heller. And while I had applied to Heller, I heard about a job at a domestic violence agency in the town that I lived in that did work with survivors of domestic violence. Echo now. Are we good? Do you all hear an echo or no? Oh,
Yeah, I just had to mute that person.
Okay, so I think it's okay. Okay, cool. And so when I was at an interview for this job at the domestic violence agency, somebody said to me, you know, we're just a group of women helping women. And so that was a pivotal moment where I thought, you know, I am going to go to grad school, but I need to be a part of this. I need to learn what's going on. I need to help. It's about a justice issue I care about. One second, I'm going to set the baby down. Okay, work-life balance, we're back. Okay. And so that was a pivotal moment. I feel like my trajectory has been marked by moments like this. And so I did that for a year. I put Heller on hold. I paused the SID program and I worked at the domestic violence agency and did that year and a half. And I realized while I was there, I kept Googling Heller and I kept Googling the SID program and I kept looking at courses. And I knew that it was time to go ahead and, you know, head off to Heller. And so I did the SID program. I loved it. I loved the classes and I kept gravitating towards classes that were about development and culture and ones that critiqued development a lot. And so when I was at Heller, I realized these all seem like it's a series of learning what I want to do and then learning what I don't want to do. And then that goes to the next thing. But then when I was in the master's program, I realized that I wanted a space to learn more, to think, to write, and to also ask hard questions about development. And so that's where I got into anthropology. And anthropology, some of you might know of taking classes in it, cultural anthropology at least, you can study just about anything. And the thing that holds anthropology together as a discipline is the methods. And so participant observation is the main method. And so you're living in and doing the thing you want to study as a way to learn about it. And so that's when I hit the wildlife stuff. It was a secondary interest of mine, and I was going to look at gender-based violence stuff as part of my PhD. And I did some of that as part of my master's at Heller. But in the PhD program, someone said to me, an advisor said to me, you know, you can't go to, I was looking at Kenya, I was looking at Cameroon at the time, and he said, you know, you can't go and only talk about gender and violence. You have to go and talk about other things as well, even if that's what you're studying. So that was a pivotal moment. And so I thought, you know, wildlife conservation, I'm interested in that. Who doesn't love elephants? Who doesn't love, you know, huge, amazing animals? And so I headed off to Cameroon to learn about what was going on there for conservation. It was a pre-dissertation fieldwork, so it was 3 months there. And I went and planted myself at a wildlife sanctuary because, you know, you head into a place and you want to connect with people there and have a home base. And while I was at the sanctuary, I met 4 little orphan chimpanzees who were all under the age of 2. And once I met them, it was wildlife and it was conservation, and chimps have become a huge part of my life. And so my whole dissertation changed at that point. And I then spent, come back, do courses, do exams for PhD. And so then I spent okay. And so then I spent around 2 years on and off in Cameroon doing my research, and that PhDs in cultural anthropology require a very long research stint. And so while I was there, as a way to learn about chimpanzee conservation and work in sanctuaries and what sanctuaries do, I volunteered. And so that was a way for me to learn about what it's like to care for another species. And so my main research questions were, what does it mean for humans to try to care about another species? And what is care? We talk about care all the time. I care about you, you care about me. We argue about care. Someone doesn't care enough. We try to care for children, for other species. So what does care mean? And so while I was there in the sanctuaries, I was sort of doing care. I cared for baby chimps who were victims of the wildlife trade. Their mothers had been killed for bushmeat. And now there's a big turn for wild baby animals to be taken. Russia, China, those are some big destinations. And even here in the US, and they are at wildlife fake sanctuaries for people to come and take photos with and put on Instagram or to keep as pets. So a lot of these babies had been rescued from situations like that, the chimps. And so I was a primary caregiver for 4 different orphans who came in. And one of them in particular, my sweetheart, I had him 22 hours a day. I was his primary human. I got a break to shower and eat. Other than that, I was with him trying to help him. You know, I was some mix of an aunt, a mother, some weird friend being. So what is going on? He was easier to take care of than human primates are. They are much easier, I think. And so I did that and volunteer. I was volunteer at the sanctuary, as I said. And while I was there, some prominent themes became race. Because these sanctuaries have been started by and run by white women from the US and from Europe and Australia. And then the majority of workers at them are Cameroonian men. And so there's some very important, colonial, post-colonial things going on, developments a part of it, community projects, things like that. Human wildlife conflict is a part of what's going on right now with the wildlife trade. And so race was a big factor in my research, and then how race and care intersect. And then cuteness was also a factor, because cuteness right now, one of my, I think, main findings was that cuteness is a new thing that's driving the wildlife trade, especially these encounters that people want to have with cheetahs, baby elephants, tigers, chimps, gorillas. People crave and want cuteness, and they think that cuteness is innocuous and cuteness is fun and cuteness is sweet, but cuteness hurts a lot of these animals. And so I was looking at what cuteness was, why we like it, how it's used for good sometimes to raise funds for a sanctuary, and then how it's used for bad. And so did that. And after the PhD, I came back here, and I still wanted to work in conservation, but what do you do in Boston, when you want to work with chimps? And so I also wanted a little human primate. And so human primate came, and one of my advisors from my PhD at Brandeis told me about an opportunity at Harvard teaching writing in their writing program. And I love writing. I hate writing rough drafts, but I love writing. I love rewriting. I love teaching writing and thinking about it. And so I got that opportunity. And around the same time, Dr. Waddell contacted me, and she is working on her memoir, working on her book. And so I got to work with her as on her book. I'm just grabbing things for the baby. Unsafe things, probably. I got to work with her on her books, the editing on that. And oh my God, guys, I'm going to pause in a second and take some questions and come back to skills. Let's do that. So I got to work with Dr. Waddell, got this opportunity at Harvard. I love teaching writing. I'm at Harvard now for 3 years. And Izzy is I don't know what's happening. So let's hear some of you talk. Bryan, you take it away.
We did have another student join, and I don't want to put them on the spot, but Lijun, if you'd like, you don't have to, no pressure. You can do this in the chat or audio to introduce yourself to Dr. Haynes and just, introduce yourself, what you found interesting, what you might want to hear about or learn from today.
Hi everyone, I'm Li Jun Li. I'm sorry I was late. So I missed part of the conversation. I just wanted to say thank you to Amy, because it's fascinating to hear what you have shared with us, and it amazed me to see how well you were multitasking while you were you're having a baby. So thank you so much. I just have sorry. Okay, I guess sorry. I lost myself. So Bryan asked me to introduce myself. So I graduated from SID in 2019. Sorry. 2013. And then I got into a PhD program in leadership and change at Antioch University. And I just graduated this summer. So I've been job hunting. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Congrats. That's a huge deal. Both of those are huge deals. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Amy, do you want, I don't know if now's a good time, but do you want to talk about the either the skill piece or sort of, I think it was it Lindsay who asked about the master to PhD process?
I'll do a little bit of the skill piece because I didn't want to lose sight of that. And then we can definitely do master to PhD. But this, I think, is what helped me along the way. Like I said, more than kind of official networking, which I do, but not well, I think. So along the way, I picked up skills, in each of these areas that kind of seem a little disconnected. And so, for undergrad, I worked with kids. I did some community projects. Peace Corps was learning French and Zarma. It was grant writing. I learned some grant writing and got critical perspective, which I don't want to discount because that's a skill. I think critical thinking that is really encouraged and facilitated at Heller. And so that was kind of a skill. When I worked at the Domestic Violence Agency, it was some monitoring and evaluation, which I know is a big part of all Heller programs. Again, it was grant writing. I learned about program evaluation, program design. MA at Heller, learned more about project design, really getting in there, how to do budgets, not my area, but how to do that, we cover that. I learned about areas that interested me a lot, like climate change. Marwa, I think, mentioned climate change, and education stuff, gender stuff. And so building writing skills for those, grants, so all of those, I think, helped me a lot sort of on the more recent end of things. And so when I went to the field in Cameroon to do research, I really made a point to say, I'm coming, I want to spend time with you all at the sanctuary, and they're busy. There's never enough people to care for these animals coming in day and night, you know, fast, and they're dangerous situations. We're working with great apes. And so a researcher wants to come in and take time from people and their attention and wants to do interviews and wants to observe. I can't just do that, I think, and take knowledge. And so I look for ways to give, you know, my skills to them. And so that was part of me volunteering. In addition to learn about what they were doing, I volunteered to give them labor. And then I did things like I offered to write grants. I helped plan monitoring and evaluation and programming for their area education programs with school kids. I love to take photos of wildlife. And so I took photos for them and gave them to them for their social media stuff and did social media posts. I helped individuals with their CVs, and then some people who wanted to go to grad school, like some of my colleagues who had done master's programs in Cameroonian friends, who wanted to hear about the educational system in the US and what a PhD would be like here. And then at Harvard, kind of looking at the same thing. Now with my colleagues in the writing program, you know, everybody has their area of expertise. Since I'm a researcher, I am working on assignments and units to help students, undergrads, develop some research skills. And so in each of these areas, I've tried to pick up hard skills, even when I was doing more academic kind of stuff, more thinking and writing, and seeing how I could offer those to people and what capacity. And all of those opportunities, I made sure I got something out of them, which was learning, basically. And people, I met people. It was a comfortable way for me to meet people. Yeah, so I think that's the skill piece, trying to pick up whatever I could along the way. And in critical perspective, like taking classes in different programs to learn about different perspectives, you know, travel as much as possible with grants. When I was in the SID program, I had to do, you know, my final paper and my practicum was between women and gender studies in the SID program. And so I linked up with a big NGO in the area and ended up helping them do a gender audit with their programs in Niger, the Central African Republic, and Tajikistan. So I had a like summer whirlwind tour of these 3 countries helping with a gender audit. And I was doing that for free. And I did that for free for the organization. I did that on student loans. And if you weren't eligible for loans, you'd probably be looking for grants and things. Yeah, opportunities to get into a different place, I think is a big deal. Yeah. So I think that's the skill piece. Do we want to pause there at all before we talk about master's to PhD?
Does anyone have any further questions about the skills piece? I mean, I think that you offer valuable insight, right? Welcoming diverse opportunities, seeking opportunities, and finding opportunity like within those instances to develop skills, right? So the more skills that you developed or you gained or you refined, you know, you can then offer those to others, right? Which is your strategy, right? Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about those skill sets?
Or maybe they want to share like ways that they've developed skills, like for the group and for me to pull from, like if anybody has any suggestions or experiences too.
Amy, when you look back at your journey, is there anything that you wish that you had known earlier?
That's a great question. Thank you. I wish I had known that I wanted to be more on the academic side, because I took out massive student loans for my master's program in SID and gender studies. And so that is the only thing. When I first got there, Dr. Susan Holcomb, I think she's retired now. I may have her last name wrong. It's been, you know, a decade since I was there. I was first talking about my interest, and she said to me, are you sure you want to be in the SID program? Because it's very applied, you know, and you sound like you may want to do the academic track. And I loved everything that the SID program was offering, and the courses and everything like that. And so I was like, no, this is where I want to be. And in retrospect, she was right and I was right. It was where I wanted to be. I got amazing things from it, but also I ended up with pretty big student loans. So yeah, I feel like that's something I couldn't have controlled for, but it's the thing I wish I had known. So great question. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have question.
Yeah, Marla?
Yes. I have like academic background. I used to teach at university, and also I have done many research. I have a book in ornithology, and I'm here doing Master of Art. I have like more than 10 years working with science. I found that shifting to arts really difficult in terms of writing. How you manage to for that shift from science to art? Because I face many difficulties for understanding some terms, because in science we only deal with knowledge, with facts. Like for me here we have to compare many essays. In science, we have facts and logic. So how you manage between those stuff?
So if I'm getting your question right, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So how did I go from my bachelor's was a bachelor's of art in psychology. So it wasn't as hard science as some other people's approach would be. But I totally hear you, because I worked with a lot of people who worked in the hard sciences and conservation, biologists. I've met a couple ornithologists, herpetologist, everything. And so going from that world to more of like a PhD, like a master, an MA degree, things like that. Am I understanding that right?
Yes, because my bachelor degree was in veterinary science.
Oh, cool. Okay. And so are you interested in a PhD program? Am I getting that right? And what kind of program are you thinking about for PhD?
For me, I want something linked me with development, environment, and conservation.
So there are some applied, at Syracuse, there's an anthropology program that's an applied program, the anthropology of development. And I know there's not a ton, from my understanding, when I was looking at this, that was 10 years ago though, PhDs in just development. A lot of them overlap development and something else. And so any of these programs, when you're applying to them, you're primarily telling them what you want to research. You're telling them your idea, you've read sort of the latest things going on in the field, and you're telling them, what do you want to learn? What new area of knowledge do you want to explore? And do you want to find out something new in? And normally you're looking for a program that you like, and you're looking for faculty at that program whose interests align with yours. And so what I did, and they know that your project, maybe your research will shift a little bit once you get there. But in general, I was looking at the time, I think I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but it had to do with gender-based violence and development. And so I came up sort of with a project idea that I wasn't in love with, but I knew at the University of Syracuse and then at Brandeis in the anthropology department, I knew that I liked what some of the faculty in both of those programs were doing. And so I wrote my statement of purpose for those, and I really geared that towards, what I had read, what was going on in the areas I was interested in. I showed them I was keeping up with the academic conversations in those areas. And then from what was happening in those areas, I pitched a project to them. And I said, I could work with these two faculty, and some of it's luck of the draw. That's another issue. But so I pitched a project, and I tried to leverage my skills, and I tried to say, my master's is in the SID program. It's in my past experience, in Africa with Peace Corps and working in gender-based violence prevention and programming in the US. these are all assets to me when I come to a PhD program, because they've given me a different perspective. I've not taken a traditional path. I have these hard skills that I can use in a PhD program, you know, grant writing. I can get myself funding when I need to. Don't go to a PhD program if they're not going to pay for you to go there. I tell that to anybody. Reputable PhD programs find money. Please don't take out loans for those. And if anybody wants to talk about that afterwards, we can. You know, at Brandeis, I got 5 years of funding, and then beyond that, I had to look for some of my own money. Yeah, I tried to pitch myself as I'm a little bit different, and that's an asset. And people like that. People, you know, it gives you a critical perspective. A lot of times somebody who started in one discipline and went straight through, they may not have the perspective that someone would have who had done a few different things. So you can, you know, certainly you have your book, you've taught, you've done a lot of really interesting things that other people who are applying aren't going to have done. And so you can definitely leverage that once you find, you know, a particular faculty at schools you would like to work with, who you think could mentor you, and you figure out, you know, you narrow down what you want to do in your field. I hope that helps. It is Susan Hope. Thank you, Dr. Waddell.
And Amy, do you want to move into the master to PhD?
Yeah. So I, like I said, the impetus for it was wanting to question, you know, development and wanting space to read and to think about it and to ask bigger questions, not just to do it, because I saw things in the doing that I felt like, hey, let's slow down. Let's talk about this. Let's think about this, you know, coming in with interventions that can really help people sometimes change and make ripples that will last forever. You know, when it comes to political structures and how people in areas manage conflict, how people in areas manage wildlife, gender relations in areas. And so a program or a project, you know, we may get funding for and work with an NGO on something for 2 years, but that's going to create problems, maybe some benefits that will last forever. And so I needed to slow down and ask questions about those. And so normally at Brandeis, I wanted to go to Brandeis because I took classes in the anthropology program while I was at Heller. I enrolled in some dual listed programs. They were dually listed also because I was doing a gender studies class. So some of them like counted for all 3. So I took those classes, I got to know those faculty, and the anthropology program didn't usually admit people who hadn't done a master's in anthropology because they want to, some PhD programs want to know who they're getting ahead of time before they commit to giving you money, you know, for 5 years. And so I kind of weaseled my way in, you know, I showed up, I was enthusiastic, I worked really hard, I got to know faculty, I went to talks, I was kind of quiet at some of them, but I was there all the time showing up. I worked really hard on papers. I in class discussions, you know, I'm raising my hand a lot. And so I got to know them so that when I applied, they felt like they had a sense of who I was and my work ethic. And so if I was applying somewhere else, you know, the knowledge, not knowledge, the best practices that people will tell you is try to connect with people ahead of your application. You know, if there's a faculty member, if somebody's research, it's some research that you admire, you've read in class, email that person. There is nobody on, maybe the very tip top, super fancy professors who are at the top of their game and make a ton of money and have written 12, 15, 20 books. They may not answer you back. If you've got a faculty member somewhere at a school who's written a book or 2, and who's working really hard to try to get tenure, and he's putting out an article and teaching a lot of classes, and you write them and you tell them you really enjoy their work, they're going to love that. And so I say do that, try to do it ahead of applications, often contact them once or twice, ask them a question about their work, and just start a conversation, you know, and see if that goes anywhere. And so that's what I'd say, try to do at places where you can't take classes, like what I tried to do to kind of get myself in there. Does that feel helpful, or does that get at what we're talking about, Bryan?
Yeah, I think so. Excuse me. I just want to make note just with time, do the students have, well, any clarifying questions on the master to PhD, but any other questions beyond that as well? I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask while we have Dr. Haynes here.
I would like to add one thing about PhD. In a lot of fields, like if you're in the social sciences, sociology, anthropology, psychology, gender studies, history, literature, art, things like that, we examine similar things about the world. We just ask and answer our questions differently. So sociology and anthropology, we look at a lot of the same things. They look at stuff with wildlife. They look at, human animal conflict. They look at, they could look at the wildlife trade. They're just looking at it at a societal level, at a big level. I'm looking at it, at the minute day-to-day level. And so when you're thinking about a discipline, especially if you're changing disciplines, see what the methods are. See if that's how you want to ask and answer your questions about the world. Read some of it, because some stuff sounds exciting and then it's boring once you start to read and talk about it. So yeah, that's something else I have.
Any additional questions from the students?
Yes, I have questions.
Yeah,
So,
Myra.
yes, about the internship, their opportunity for the internship, if you have experience about organizations that offer internship for conservation.
So conservation organizations, that's a great question. They never have enough money and they never have enough time. And if you can offer, so this is unpaid. What I'm talking about is unpaid in a lot of these fields. If you can offer to help on a project, if you can offer something specific, a little bit of your time, something finite. If you say, I have 3 months, I have 10 hours a week, these are my skills, let's talk, let's see what I can do for you. That's how I tried to and was able to connect with some organizations in the Boston area. Because a lot of these organizations don't have any money. And so it's not very helpful if you need to fund yourself to stay here for the summer for an internship. But that was my strategy. I was working, I took out some loans, and I pieced together volunteer opportunities that I tried to create for myself. It's not very exciting if you need money, but that's one way to do it.
Are you able to identify some of those orgs that are at least in the area that you?
Oh, yeah, that great practical question. The New England, what is it called? So the New England Zoo Association, the Franklin Park Zoo in Boston, an accredited zoo. Any accredited zoos will have, by the American Zoo Association and an Aquarium Association, will have a wildlife conservation component where for the species that they have at the zoo, they also fund or give to, or in either money or in-kind resources, conservation projects for animals in situ, for wild animals that are still in the locations, their own home ranges. And so there, there's a gorilla troop, a gorilla family at the Franklin Park Zoo here in Boston, and they fund and help Wildlife Conservation Society in Nigeria doing conservation work on the ground. They fund rangers who are there in the parks to protect gorillas. They work on giraffe conservation because they have giraffes there. They do that in somewhere in East Africa, I forget where. But so that's one place that definitely has no money and would love to have somebody help out. And again, I say, try to offer something limited in time and hours, because they have a lot of people who come to volunteer and then kind of drop off. And so if you offer something set, that's I think encourages them to take you on because they can kind of bank on it. Let's see, there's not a lot of conservation stuff here. That's part of why I'm teaching writing. There's a lot of conservation stuff where with UNESCO, and I'm thinking of the grass grade 8 species survival project with the UN. It's one of the only species specific projects. they don't have any money, but they're based in Kenya, and I would like to do some stuff with them. So I'm trying to find conservationists here in the US or in the area that has ties there, contacting them, saying, these are my skills, you know, can I help you in any way? I do grant writing. Can I proofread stuff for you? And so a lot of times with these organizations, I would try to find someone to get in with. I can look and send list of other, like what I know of Bryan later, because there aren't many. And the Audubon Society, they do a lot of bird stuff for Marwa. Maybe that's interesting. A lot of bird watching. There's also citizen science initiatives where if you want to get involved in some conservation stuff here, you can go out and collect data. It's volunteer, but you can collect data and contribute with bird watching and sightings and things like that. There's all kinds of cool stuff with citizen science and conservation. Yeah, so I can get some stuff to Bryan afterwards. I'll put a little list together, maybe this weekend, because we're finishing up classes at Harvard tomorrow.
Great, thank you. Does that answer your question, Marwa?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any last final questions? Because I know that some of you have class at 2. Right, it doesn't appear there are any immediate questions, but Dr. Haynes, I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I'm trying to put I'll put my email in the chat, and I would love to hear from anybody. And if I didn't answer something specifically, please reach out. Or if you want to have coffee, reach out. I'd love to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, for putting yourself out there and being willing to help and share.
Also, I'm happy to share my statement of purpose from my PhD applications 10 years ago, which somebody could see what they look like. You know, I mean, some of it's definitely still relative, but you can see what helped me get in a couple of places. Maybe it would help somebody else.
Yeah, every resource is of value. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, if there are no final questions, I just want to thank all of you for being here today, for your participation and contributions. And of course, Dr. Haynes, you've been preparing for this all semester, so I hope lived up to your expectations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, everyone. It's been great. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah,
Nice to meet
definitely.
you.
And so, yeah, reach out to me and I'll send stuff to Bryan. So
Perfect.
Have a
Well, we
great day.
look forward to being in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.